Think Micronus Prime is just another small figure? Think again. In this episode, we spotlight one of the newest Age of the Prime releases and show you how to turn this little bot into a big time upgrade. From display hacks to multiple alternate forms and transformation tips, and even some hints on how to balance him for displays, we're going to unlock every trick Micronus has to offer. Let's go. We're deep into the Age of the Primes line, and it seems like we're now starting to get the primes that are a bit more wild design-wise. So what better time than now to take a look at one of the most versatile and mysterious primes of the line, Micronus Prime. This compact yet powerful prime figure definitely packs a punch with its unique design, modular parts, and creative potential for both play and display. Let's break down every detail of Micronus Prime, including how he compares to other primes, look at some of the ways he can be used to enhance other bots and form multiple vehicle modes, and check out some fun and effective display tips to keep this one-wheeled wonder stable and dynamic. All this and more in this week's episode, only at Heroic Nonsense. So to be honest, I was most excited to get this guy for our boys because he looked like he'd be totally up their alley with his unique alt mode, combination potential, and just overall fun factor. And man, was I right. But I have to say, this little guy has grown on me too. It's great to once in a while get a Transformers figure that is just plain fun to play and experiment with, and doesn't use up all of your brain power and time to transform. If I had to choose which mode was my number one favorite, I'd probably go with the bike mode. But, at the same time, I like the small but mighty look of this bot mode, and the fact that he is essentially made up of an exoskeleton that houses the disc alt mode of the main character in his chest. You gotta keep things interesting in a toy line, and Micronus definitely hits that mark. Lots you can do with that exoskeleton as well, so let's see how creative we can get. So this bot is essentially 2-in-1 because you get a nicely detailed suit of armor type bot that can be used and displayed completely separate from the main Micronus character mini bot inside. We'll start with the bigger deluxe class exoskeleton though because, well, he's bigger and is essentially the part of the figure that transforms into the Cybertronian motorcycle. For a deluxe class though, he is pretty nicely detailed and really has some unique distinguishing features like those legs that are formed for the wheel. I like the mix of blue, black, and silver, always a nice combination, and he has those cool openings in his chest that allow you to see into the disc hidden inside, all locked in place by Micronus' Chimera Stone. Head design is nice as well, almost hitting the level of a Combaticon type look, but keeping a friendlier, less aggressive feel befitting of an honorable prime. He's definitely streamlined with no major parts that stick out, with the back incorporating the front fork for the wheel, creating a dual spinning blade look even if it's mostly useless as a weapon in this position. Very easy to pose and balance, which is a must for creating great looking displays and shots both in a walking pose as well as a crouched pose. Again, those legs really stand out and create a plated look that really works with this figure, even though he ends up looking a bit stocky. Side note, you gotta love hands that are basically lasers. So while I did say that his back blades are mostly useless as weapons, they can be folded out to give this bot some flying power, so it's great to see that those pieces are not just aesthetic, but functional as well. And again, great balance to have him appear that he is lifting off the ground with one leg in the air. Now let's take a look at what's hidden inside the chest, and yes, it's a perfect disc-shaped Micronus in his alt mode, which surprisingly integrates seamlessly into the body. And once you transform the disc into bot mode, you get your second bot of the set, which really does look great, reminiscent of his appearance in the 2015 Robots in Disguise cartoon, which admittedly I'm not as familiar with, but have looked into a bit for this review. For such a small bot, he is highly detailed and looks fantastic, especially with that head design which also packs a ton of detail and expressiveness. Every angle keeps the overall same look, with the back also housing the Chimera Stone from earlier. Truly impressed with how good he looks from all sides. And yes, this is, dare I say, a cutesy type figure, especially when standing next to his unicycle Cybertronian motorcycle, but I think that's what also gives him his charm. And if you thought that the exoskeleton's usefulness stopped there, well, I have some news for you. Since this toy is essentially a weaponizer reminiscent of those siege days, he can be broken apart and reassembled onto other larger bots. I used the recently released aerial bot Fireflight from the same line here, as this is the one used in the instructions that come with Micronus Prime. And while I do appreciate the attempt to expand on the exoskeleton, I feel they were grasping a bit at straws here. Since the main body of the tactical bike very loosely attaches to the back of Fireflight and really can only be used in this way for figures that might have some tabs that can fit into these holes in the armor. Still, it does look kinda cool and is totally fun for kids to play with, allowing them to use their imagination, which is always a bonus and a key element of the Transformers toys. And it doesn't hurt to have some other options for our displays as well, using the wheel as a type of shield and the arms as added firepower, which admittedly looks good on Fireflight. And with all the ports typically found on recent Transformers figures, you can add these parts to other bots to your heart's desire, in this case using Micronus as the base model, since he's big enough to incorporate the bike frame and wheel as some type of shoulder guard for each arm. The exoskeleton's arms also make for some nice sidearms for any bot that can use them. So what do you think? Does this added feature work for you, and have you come up with any other creative uses for his armor? Share in the comments section and let this community know. I suspect we'll come up with more ideas now that he's part of our collection. I like this alt mode. The color and Cybertronian feel just work for me within the context of this character and toy. Yes, it's a unicycle, but it's done well and has a very retro-futuristic feel to it, a bit manga as well. And if you're going to have a rideable vehicle for a mini transformer like Micronus, this just makes sense. I don't think having Micronus fit into a full-on 4-wheeled vehicle would have worked in this scale, and a larger 2-wheeled motorcycle would just be too big. This hits that sweet spot and looks both pretty sleek and tactical. Since this is a unicycle, it has the misfortune of not being able to stand upright without some help. As this figure doesn't have a built-in mechanism to do that, I've come up with a few helpful ideas that I think work well. Starting with my favorite, which incorporates two techniques, one of which uses the engineering of the wheel to keep the wheel from rolling while also being quite discreet, with the other using a blast effect from one of the recent Transformers lines to keep the frame from tipping forwards or backwards by slotting into a spot between the wheel and frame and essentially locking it into place, doubling as an exhaust or spark effect that is barely noticeable when displayed, especially when Micronus Prime is sitting on the bike. Speaking of which, how does Micronus look on the bike? Not bad actually. Like I said not too long ago, if you're going to have a deluxe figure that needs to incorporate a smaller bot like Micronus, this way is as good as any and doesn't seem out of place. Really like the front angle, again very sleek and Cybertronian looking, and as you can see or not see, the blast effect to keep the bike upright is really not noticeable. If you do want to display it without some way of keeping it upright, it still looks good, with the back arms keeping it from entirely flipping backwards. Also, those arms make for some very chopper looking exhaust pipes, which add to this mode perfectly. Because the exhaust pipes are the arms, they can bend at the joint to create some different types of looks for the bike, here only being slightly bent to give it a more angular look. However, they can be attached in multiple configurations, each with its own unique feel to it, even going so far as having them be reversed and facing forward to create a very compact Cybertronian attack bike. The great thing is that even if you don't use a stand, you can display the bike slightly tipped over to create the impression that it's speeding down some Cybertronian highway making a tight turn. This reminds me of some type of robo-walker like the 80s robotics toys, which also lets you keep it displayed upright without any additional accessories. By the way, anyone else remember that line of toys and cartoon? My second display hack is a simple one. I just grabbed some small clear plastic looking accessories high enough to reach the exhaust pipes and balanced one side on them. In this case, I used some of the Energon cubes that come with the Blocky's Transformers figures, which work really well. You just have to use the one side furthest away from you. As for the other alt mode in the set, that belonging to Micronus himself, I believe it's supposed to represent the Minicon storage panels from the Armada cartoon from back in the day, insignias and all. It would be great if they eventually make some other versions of bots like these with other Minicons and insignias, but feel that for now this is a one-off. Now this part I totally owe to my boys, who to their credit almost immediately thought of converting Micronus' armor into a flying speeder bike after seeing those blades that hold the wheel in place. And you know what? This alt mode looks as good or even better with only a few modifications to the official transformation. What about the wheel? Well, if you really want to keep it connected, all you have to do is split it open slightly and connect it to the undercarriage of the bike with a small port, and it totally fits the aesthetic, doesn't detract from it at all. And you don't even notice that it's been attached from the front view. To make it even more sleek, fold in those makeshift wings, and you have quite the cool looking aerial bike for Micronus to take to the skies with. I even took it one step further and came up with this beetle-like form, which also looks quite good in my opinion. Did anyone else come up with another mode I haven't thought of? Let me know. While I usually go all out on comparisons to really show how the figure scales to other ones in our collection, I think in this case the best and most appropriate comparisons are to his brothers and sisters, the other primes in the line. And he definitely fits right into the overall look and feel of the other primes released to date, especially as compared to Alchemist Prime and Primer Prime. Although the other primes released so far are way more in scale to each other, being more standard type Cybertronian vehicles, Micronus on his bike still works, as the exoskeleton alt form is a rideable vehicle for Micronus and is meant to be large enough to accommodate him while still fitting on Cybertronian roads. I actually think that it looks quite good in this sense up against the other primes. But here's one that's a bit outside the box, the Micronus bike alt mode as compared to the Junkions. And they look great next to each other and scale quite well, with Micronus' bike serving as a smaller one-wheeled version for smaller bots to ride. And wait till you see what I come up with in the display section of this spotlight. As for Micronus himself, I had to show you how he scales with various smaller Transformers sublines, starting with one of my favorite Transformers concepts, the updated Prime Master Pretenders that were part of the Power of the Primes line. With, guess who? Micronus himself inside the outer shell of Cloudburst. How's that for meta? What's great is that both toys use the same concept of Micronus fitting into an outer shell. Some other smaller bots, including the Minicon Whisper that came with Shattered Glass Sideswipe. Of course, gotta include some cassettes which, as small as they are still bigger than Micronus. As well as the fairly short-lived Core class, which seemed gigantic next to Micronus. Hard to believe, right? Here, some smaller figures from the more traditional G1 Transformers base lines, Wheelie and Spike in his exosuit. Followed by some Target Masters that scale nicely with Micronus and look quite good next to each other. And for fun, the other kick I'm on these days with my boys, some Defender class Blockies Transformers figures. But I saved this for last because these guys line up perfectly height-wise, and I've always loved the Micromasters ever since they came out back in the late 80s. This is another fun one, the Bakugan type Transformers figure Whirlwing that came out recently with Transformers 1 Megatron. It's a deep cut, but given both of their alt modes and even color schemes, totally works. Let's start this part off with my favorite non-traditional display idea so far that I alluded to earlier, pairing the Junkions with Micronus. In this case, having Hot Rod riding Studio Series Junk Heap, which in my opinion looks so perfect. I mean, look at how well those two pair together. So adding in Micronus on his bike is a perfect match, but if you want to take it one step further, how about having a mini-bot riding the bike? And I can't believe it, but it generally works. What's also great is that you can still incorporate Micronus in his disc alt mode by finding some extra accessory lying around and pegging him in to create some type of battle shield. In this case, I borrowed part of Megatronus' polearm. What do you guys think of the team up? Is it a winner? Do you think there's a better match? This is another fun display idea, playing off of the idea of Megatronus going rogue and killing his brothers and sisters. This just works simply because Micronus is so small and his transformation engineering allows him to actually look like he is being torn apart by Megatronus. I got this mini blaster with my Masterpiece tracks, and it's my favorite thing to get to pull him out when I get the chance. And what better opportunity to do so than with Micronus here, who can hold blaster perfectly, scale and all. And while we're on the topic of carrying someone, Micronus' exoskeleton can perfectly accommodate Micronus himself in the exact same way. But what's better than that? Well, that would be Micronus holding blaster on his shoulder, while at the same time being held on his exoskeleton shoulder. Of course, these are more fun display ideas, but I'm telling you, this figure is meant to have fun with, so why not? But yes, the best and most logical display idea will be with the rest of the primes, which are slowly growing in number. As we saw earlier, they do look great when displayed together. But as their numbers continue to grow, we're now able to create more of that Pantheon feel, which I think in the end will make for a great display if you have the room. As for vehicles, I typically try to keep our displays in bot form, but I really like the way all these vehicles fit together. Maybe it's because this is the first line in a while separate from G1 that is truly all within one theme and concept. We'll have to wait and see how they continue to display together as we get some of the less vehicle based ones in like Onyx Prime, but so far so good. And with a bit of movie magic, Alpha Trion thrown into the mix. And I know this isn't the Age of the Primes line version, but Alpha Trion will likely be the one prime we don't get since this alt mode is just top notch. Finally, another fun one that you can actually use in your 13 primes display, that of Micronus jumping out of his exoskeleton as he transforms, ready to assist the rest of the primes with his unique abilities by way of his Chimera Stone. Alright, let's transform this guy, or should I say pull him apart. Alright, so we're going to start with taking off the arms and just putting them aside for now. And then we're going to open up his chest like so to reveal the inner disc, which is Micronus. We'll just pull him out and we'll put him aside for now as well. We just have to take off the Chimera Stone, which locks the chest in place. And then we can just pull off the legs, which form the wheels, and is quite a bit of nice engineering. So what we'll do here is we're going to just rotate the legs 90 degrees out and then push this part of, I guess, the foot down and click it in place. We'll do the same for the other leg. You can already see it's starting to form the wheel. Then we'll lift this up 90 degrees and just fold it in like so. And the top part basically transforms itself, and you just got to push in that little part that sticks out. And there you go, you have the wheel. So let's take the upper part of the exoskeleton, we'll push down the head, and then we'll fold up these parts of the chest, followed by lifting kind of the seat of the bike, and then pushing these parts that basically hold the wheel in place and then clicking it back down like I just did. And now we'll grab the wheel. This part can be a little tricky. You got to put it in these tabs. There's the corresponding holes on the wheel. Like I said, it's really great engineering. I really like the way they designed this. So you just got to push it in on each side. So that's one part, and then you do the same for the other. Can be a little tricky. Sorry, I think I'm a little out of frame. Just got to get this in any second. And there you go. So now the wheel's attached. And you can see it spins nicely. And then this tab right here fits into the slot. Same on the other side. And there you go. You have the biggest part of the bike. And now all you have to do is take the arms, slot them in right here. Tab them in. And they basically form the exhaust pipes. You do the same here. Tab it in. And that's it. The bike is done. So now all we have to do is grab the disc and transform Micronus, which is fairly easy. Just pull down the legs, pull out the arms, and then just pull them up a bit, flip the head around 180 degrees. You just turn the legs a bit, pull them out, and you can bring down the arms now. And he's ready to go to ride the bike. So to get him into the right position, just turn these lower parts of the arm in and place them on the bike. You'll see the hands just fit right into the handlebars fairly easily. And that's it. He's riding his bike. You just have to kind of play around with his legs a bit to give him a more realistic look, and that's it. He's done. Fun little transformation. And of course, you got to put this Chimera stone, if you want, on his back. Looks great from every angle. Really like this toy. Let's wrap this spotlight up with the Age of the Primes box art, which, as I've said a few times already, is probably one of my favorite series to date for art, including this one, which includes both a shot of Micronus in bot mode jumping out of his armor, as well as a completely separate shot of him on his bike, both drawn to perfection in a comic style. We get one of the two images from the front of pack on the side, blown up a bit more, and the fairly straightforward but still nicely designed back of pack showcasing each bot and alt mode. So, what do you guys think? Is Micronus a must-have for your collection, or is he an easy pass? Personally, I bought him for a different reason, as I mentioned at the start, but I have to say I'm very happy to have this little guy as part of our collection, even if he ultimately becomes a toy to fidget around with. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this episode of Heroic Nonsense, and look forward to seeing you all back next episode with a brand new and exciting spotlight. And remember, it's all such heroic nonsense in the end.
Bravo!